Hello my dear viewer, today I want to share with you the story of J.B. Hilton, Beasley and Tracie Jean Hawlett, who were attacked by a man who remained undetected for the next 20 years. On July 31, 1999 at 10 p.m., two 17-year-old friends of J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett traveled from Dothan, Alabama to Hilton. The girls planned to attend a party organized in honor of J.B.'s birthday. At about 11:30 p.m., J.B. and Tracie stopped at a gas station in Hilton and called their friends from a payphone to find out where the party was taking place. After the call, the girls got into a black 1993 Mazda 929 that belonged to J.B. and continued on their way. After some time, the girls stopped again, but this time next to the Big Little store. They didn't understand how to get to the house where the party was taking place and wanted to use the phone to call Tracie's mother. However, the store closed half an hour earlier than expected and the girls had to find the nearest payphone. During a telephone conversation, Tracie told her mother that she and her friend were lost and ended up in Loser, Alabama. Around midnight, a woman named Marilyn Mary and her daughter stopped at a gas station next to the store and saw two confused girls, Tracie and J.B. They asked her the way back and Marilyn tried to explain everything to them in detail. The woman remembered the girls well and later said that they were very nice and polite, and J.B.'s car was clean and well maintained. Everything seemed to be in perfect order. The girlfriends got into the car and drove out of the parking lot, and then turned right as indicated. However, J.B. and Tracie never returned home. J.B. Hilton Beasley was born on July 31, 1982 in Troy, Alabama to Hilton and Cheryl Beasley. She attended Nordview High School and was a member of the cheerleading team. The girl was actively involved in dancing and was the owner of numerous titles and awards. Tracie Jean Hawlett was born on March 3, 1982 in Dayton, Alabama to Robert and Carol Hawlett. Her father was a respected police officer, but died tragically by drowning in a lake in the winter of 1987. Her stepfather, Mike Roberts, who was the father of her two younger brothers, took an active part in raising Tracie. The girl studied at Nordview High School and was a role model among her peers. Around 8 a.m. on August 1, 1999, at the same time Tracie's mother reported her daughter missing, police discovered J.B. The outside of the car was covered in mud, the driver's side window was partially rolled down and the doors were locked. The tank was almost empty. Despite the girls visiting a gas station the night before, there were no signs of forced entry, and J.B.'s driver's license was found. Lay on the dashboard. Both girls' purses were in the back seat of the car, and the personal belongings, including a small amount of cash, appeared to be there. The only item missing was a keychain belonging to J.B. On it hung all the keys that the girl had, to the car, to the house, to the garage. This item was never found. Surprisingly, the police were able to open the trunk of the car only 6 hours after it was discovered. All this time, the officers thought they would need the help of a locksmith or the original key. One of the officers found an internal latch in the car's interior and the trunk opened. The bodies of both girls were there. Tracie was shot in the temple and J.B. in the cheek. A spent 9mm cartridge was lying on Tracie's leg. Both girls were fully clothed and their shoes were stained with mud. Tracie had burrs stuck to her jeans and her hands were scratched. J.B.'s clothes looked very dirty and both girls' pants were wet to the knees, suggesting that their murder was more like an execution. Presumably Tracie and J.B. were shot elsewhere before their bodies were moved to the trunk of a car. The autopsy revealed no signs of violence, but J.B.'s underwear showed signs of abuse. Traces of seminal fluid were found. Despite this, DNA testing was never carried out. A toxicological examination found no alcohol or illicit substances in the girls' blood. On the night of July 31, 1999, when Tracie Hawlett called her mother from a payphone located next to the Big Little store, 28-year-old Johnny William Barentine went to buy milk for his 2-year-old son. He returned home only at 1 in the morning and was visibly upset. Johnny told his wife that his car had been run off the road by a black truck with a Dothan logo near Haring Avenue. A few days later, Barentine admitted to his friends that he had information about the J.B. murders. and Tracie Hawlett, who advised Johnny to go to the authorities to get a cash reward. On September 1, 1999, Barentine walked into the Ozark Police Department and was questioned for 4 hours. During this time, the man told the police 6 different stories, and in some of them he even ended up at the crime scene. Barentine initially stated that on July 31, 1999, he saw a black truck driving away from the area where the girls' bodies were later found. He then said he picked up a stranger with tattoos on the road, and as they passed the Big Little store, the passenger told Barentine to stop and wait for him. When the man allegedly got back into the car, he was accompanied by 2 pretty girls. Johnny claimed that they were the same dead girls. After Barentine stopped the car on Haring Avenue, the man got out of the car with the girls. According to Barentine, both girls behaved aggressively, and a couple of minutes later he heard 2 shots, after which the stranger returned to the car and the men drove away. In one version of the story, Barentine claimed that the stranger was actually his neighbor. Following this confession, Barentine was charged with 2 capital counts. Upon learning that he was facing a serious charge, Barentine renounced his testimony and stated that he had made up the story in the hope of receiving a monetary reward. On December 17, 1999, Johnny Barentine was released from prison after his DNA was tested and did not match that found on JB's underwear. Later, 3 more suspects appeared in the case, but none of them was guilty, as it turned out during the investigation. In March 2000, police received a call from an unknown woman who reported hearing screams and 2 gunshots near Highway 123 South, just outside the city limits on the night of July 31, 1999. She did not report this earlier because she did not want to have anything to do with such a high-profile crime. The area she indicated was carefully examined with the help of metal detectors, and soon experts found a 9mm caliber bullet, but its brand name did not match the brand of cartridges found at the murder scene. In 2015, a sworn Ozark Auxiliary police officer named Rena Crump issued a statement accusing another police officer of killing J.B. and Tracie Hawlett. She also claimed that other law enforcement officials knew the killer well, but tried to hide his identity using threats and intimidation of witnesses. She claimed that on the night of July 31, 1999, a certain policeman stopped J.B. and demanded to know the location of audio cassettes with recordings that could incriminate senior Ozark police officials of distributing illegal substances and making profit. Despite Rena's statement and the fact that she named some of the police officers involved, she refused to name the culprit and could not explain how the confidential audio recordings could have ended up in the schoolgirl's possession. The officers Rena accused denied any involvement in the murders of JB and Tracie Hawlett. On January 29, 2016, Ozark police officers Keith Cawthon, Rex Upton, Tony Spivey, Eddie Henderson and Harry Whittington filed a lawsuit against Renee Crump for libel and defamation of character. In May 2016, she was arrested for reporting harassment. For many years this case remained unsolved. Despite the efforts of the police and the FBI, the identity of the perpetrator who killed the 2 girls remained unknown until March 2019, when a man named Coley McCraney was arrested. McCraney was 23 years old at the time of the crime. He lived most of his life in the area where the girls' bodies were found. The Carroll High School graduate then enlisted in the U.S. Navy at Belks. He returned to Age and lived on Lisan Bedorov about 1.5 kilometers from the crime scene. At the time of his arrest, McCraney served as the bishop of a local church and worked part-time as a truck driver. In September 1998, McCraney was sued in a paternity case. On July 30, 1999, just 1 day before the murder, a judge ordered McCraney to provide samples for DNA testing. McCraney failed to show up for the test, so he was called back. The man again ignored the judge's demands and agreed to pay child support. Over the next few years, several more child support petitions were filed against McCraney. According to the documents, McCraney continued to evade child support payments and did not participate in any way in raising the child. During the trial, an approximate picture of what happened to Tracie and JB on July 31, 1993 was restored. According to assumptions, McCraney noticed the girls near the store when they asked for directions from a passing mother and daughter. When the woman left, McCraney approached the girls with a gun in his hands and ordered them into the car, after which he drove them to a swampy area. Forced J.B. at gunpoint, take off her jeans, and then force her to have sexual intercourse. He then forced the girls into the trunk of the car and fired 2 shots, killing first J.B. and then Tracie. McCraney then closed the trunk and drove the car to Harding Avenue, walking the rest of the way home. It is noteworthy that the profile of the DNA killer was transferred to the database in 1999 immediately after the autopsies of the girls were performed, but at that time the results were negative and the culprit remained at large for 20 years. In 2018, McCraney agreed to his wife's entreaties and provided samples of his DNA to be posted on a genealogy website. That same year, investigators in the murders of Tracie and J.B. sent DNA samples of the alleged killer to a laboratory that does DNA sequencing. Thus, McCraney's DNA entered into the system matched the DNA found on J.B.'s underwear. The trial in this case dragged on for several weeks, but Coley McCraney was ultimately found guilty of the murders of Tracie and J.B. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. J.B. Hilton Beasley was buried on August 6, 1999 at Sansa Obama Memorial Park Cemetery. Tracie Hawlett was buried in Memorial Hill Cemetery in Dothan, Alabama. Thank you for your attention, and I recommend subscribing to the channel, and also clicking on the bell so as not to miss new videos that come out. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you soon.